Hi there, my name is Matti Sulanto. I'm a photographer based in Helsinki, Finland. And in this video I'm going to review this camera. The Panasonic Lumix LX100II. If you like my content, please consider subscribing to my channel and tap the bell also so you won't miss any of my future videos. I will publish a new video every Tuesday. This is my user experience review of the Panasonic Lumix LX100II for photography. It's also a quite nice camera for video, but I'll get back to that in another video. This is a user experience review from my point of view, how this camera works for me. In my heart, I'm a documentary photographer and my shooting style is quite simple. I shoot 99.9% raw. Because if I shoot JPEG, I feel that I'm throwing away something that I already paid for. But that's just me. If you're happy shooting JPEGs, by all means go ahead and continue that. Whatever works for you and makes you happy in your photography, that's what counts. I already made a first impressions video where I talked about the ergonomics and the controls of the camera, but here are a few more observations now that I've used the camera a bit more. In my first impressions, I promised some travel photos. And I have some, but I don't have as many as I would like to have, because my time in Barcelona went to testing the brand new Panasonic S1, and that was fun too. When you turn the power on, it takes about 2 seconds for the camera to be ready for shooting. It's not a long time, but you are going to miss some situations or action if you are not prepared. I really like it that the camera remembers my last used focal length, and that makes it a lot faster to start taking pictures. And generally all the controls are well laid out and the camera is simple to operate. And I like that the main controls are fairly large and logical. The retro shutter dial has only full EV clicks, but you can set the intermediate values by turning the rear dial. This camera is also very usable in winter conditions with gloves, which can't be said for all compact cameras. The touch screen is very handy and I use it mainly for choosing the focus point. But of course in winter, outside with gloves, the touch function is of no use. I also wish the screen would at least tilt up and down. That would make high or low angle shooting much easier. The only button that I find is clearly in the wrong place is the IA button right next to the power switch. The IA means intelligent auto, and the camera chooses all the settings for you based on the scene or the subject. I accidentally bumped the button a few times and then I was wondering why all of a sudden the camera is in some weird mode. And you can't reprogram the button nor can you disable it. Fortunately, it's quick to return to normal by pushing the button again. Once you get used to it, then you realize what just happened. I can see why the feature is included, but I wish I could at least disable it if I want to. This is after all an enthusiast's camera and I don't think all users want or need the IA function or feature. There is also a handy lock function that you can use to lock some of the controls and functions, and I found that really useful, especially when I was out shooting with gloves. It prevents accidentally bumping the controls and changing the settings. The camera has no built-in flash, but there is a tiny external flash included. It's powerful enough as a fill light and also a main light at close distances. You can't tilt the flash, but you can use it as a remote controller for Panasonic's wireless flash system. And the sync speed is 1/2000 of a second, and that makes some nice effects possible even on a bright sunny day if you have a powerful enough flash. The sensor is the same 20 megapixel unit that's inside many Lumix Micro Four Thirds cameras, but the LX100 doesn't use the full sensor area. The pixel count depends on the chosen aspect ratio, and Panasonic call this a multi-aspect sensor. When you change the aspect ratio, you actually get a different framing instead of just a crop. The 4:3 ratio gives the biggest file or the biggest image size at around 17 megapixels. The 3:2 is around 16 megapixels, but the angle of view is a little bit wider horizontally. And the 16:9 is about 15 megapixels, and that's even wider. There is also a 1:1 square, but that's a crop from the 4:3 image area. One reason for Panasonic to use the sensor area like this, I think, is to be different. But I think another reason is that they can make the lens just a little bit smaller because the image circle is smaller, because the sensor area or the image area is smaller. The zoom lens has 24 to 75 millimeter equivalent angle of view, and the fastest aperture is from f1.7 to f2.8. The maximum aperture shrinks as you zoom in, and already at 35 millimeter equivalent angle of view you are at f2.3. Well, it's a small lens and there's gotta be a compromise somewhere. But luckily, the optical performance is not badly compromised. The sharpness is generally very good, but at the wide end there is some corner softness visible at 100% magnification. It's not really bad and it's not likely to distract in real-world use, but a pixel peeper will easily see that. Stopping down helps a little, but beyond f5.6 the diffraction is starting to creep in and it starts to soften the image. But something like f8 is still pretty usable. However, it's seldom necessary to stop down that far because there's ample depth of field already at f5.6, especially at the wide end. There are no distortions or chromatic aberrations visible because Panasonic corrects them in camera even for RAW. I used to think electronic correction is all bad years ago, but now I think they're just fine as long as they work. And even Leica uses them, so they can't be all bad. It is possible to get some background blur at the longest focal length, wide open, for portraits for example. Just make sure that your background is not right behind your subject. The autofocus is fast and accurate. It also offers many options including face recognition and a customizable autofocus area. I have to say I didn't test the continuous focus really that much because I very seldom use continuous shooting mode in my photography. And I don't think you're gonna buy this camera for sports or action anyways. If you happen to have small kids and you like to photograph them, I think you can make the LX100 Mark II work. After all, it's more about the photographer than the camera. The image quality is essentially Micro Four Thirds quality and very good for a compact camera. I made a very simple and not scientific comparison to the G9, and there is not much difference in sensor level. But of course, you can mount any lens on the G9 and that can make a difference. The battery life is okay, but not great. However, having said that, I never had problems with the battery life in my use. If you have a long day ahead, I suggest you take a spare battery or a USB power bank and top up the camera battery via USB. The Panasonic Lumix LX100 Mark II is very enjoyable camera to use. The controls are good, large and logical. The image quality is very good and certainly good enough for any online use and also good for fairly large prints. At least up to A2 size, you shouldn't have any problems. The LX100 Mark II is not exactly a pocket camera, but it's still quite small and easy to carry around without too much pain. It's good for traveling light, street photography, and for anyone looking for a small camera with good image quality. I really wish Panasonic would make an LX with a 28 or 35mm equivalent prime lens. I understand it wouldn't appeal to as many as the zoom version, but I would be very happy. Not that I'm not happy with the current model, but I would be even happier. Well, that's my user experience review of the Panasonic Lumix LX100 Mark II. I'll get back to the video features in some other video. I hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.